Hi everyone. So today I have our mentee Aishwarya with us. Aishwarya has recently secured a job offer with one of the leading IPR firms, kind of a dream place to a lot of students who aspire to have a career in the field of IP laws. Aishwarya is a second generation law student and she has a background of a non-NLU from Chennai. So let's try to hear from Aishwarya how she managed to secure this job. What was her planning strategy all this while? How did she plan her internships, and what did she do to secure this job offer? So, hi Aishwarya, how would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, I'm Aishwarya. I'm from Chennai. I did my BA LLB from VIT University, Chennai. So during my law school, if someone had told me IP is where my career would lie, I wouldn't have believed it myself. Because just like everyone else, I was way too interested in too many fields while I was doing my BA LLB. When I did a litigation internship, I would be so much into litigation. Then when I went to do a corporate internship, I would be so much into corporate. Like I was so into ADR at one point that I wanted ADR to be my career. So I've been one of those law students who just was so amazed by law that I would immediately think of a career in every subject that interested me. And someone who loves to learn, I would be passionate about every aspect of law. Reading used to be my favorite thing. So whichever subject interests me most in that semester, I would immediately imagine myself pursuing a career in that. As though this sounds very fascinating, there are a lot of issues with this idea of imagining yourself to be in pursuing so many things at one given point. During my law school days, I've always had this, I've always felt that I've never dreamt of so many firms, to be very honest. I've not even thought about getting into some of the biggest law firms, because I always thought that probably it was not made for me, or I was not made for it, to be honest. I can nearly not figure out where this comes from. But despite being able to secure very well in my exams and able to like really get ranks during almost every semester possible, and even I passed out with a university rank, but still I thought that maybe I was not equipped practically to work in a firm, or maybe I was just not exposed enough to work in a firm, is what I've always thought about myself. So coming to IP, I'm always this creative person in my head, but I've never thought that creativity and law can go together. I've always thought these two very extremely different things, where I didn't really understand that something like an intellectual property law can actually bring a law and creativity together under one roof. And ever since I've figured that out, I realized that IP wanted to be my career. So after my LLB, I was into litigation for a brief period of a year. And then I went ahead to pursue masters in IP. So I was so sure that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And eventually, I started liking IP more and more. And then I tried finding opportunities to intern in IP. So one of my first ever internships in IP was after my LLB. So that was my very first time. I was actually doing some practical work in IP, where I was dealing with trademarks on an everyday basis, and working in an IP firm was something that made me push towards my goal of achieving a position in an IP firm, is what I think. And to someone who is in their college, who's currently pursuing LLB, what I would like to say is that although law is very fascinating and every area of law seems to be very interesting, I would suggest from my personal experience that the earlier you start figuring out what you want to do, or it might not be something that you want to do 10 years later. That's always there, that can always be there. But the earlier you find out, you can be passionate about every area of law, but pursuing a career is completely different from being passionate about it. And it's more like start figuring out where you want to see yourself after law school as early as possible. That is what I would recommend to anybody who is there in their LLB. And I know it's really it is kind of difficult, and for someone who is from Chennai, I would say that it's much more better compared to many other places, but it's still very competitive out there. And what I would say is, and mostly we have language barrier, which is one of the most frustrating problems that people face who can't speak Hindi. As someone who can speak Hindi, I found that a lot of my friends are very reluctant to take up internships or job opportunities at different parts of the country because they're not familiar with the language over there. So what I would suggest is that start figuring out your internships, or put yourself through it. Like, why not take up an internship which is not in South India? Why not do an internship in Delhi? Like, just put yourself through it, because law school days are the best, where you're without any inhibition, and trial and error is best when you can do it in your college days. Like, once you're passed out, the inhibition starts to kick in like real bad. So as long as you're in your law school, try putting your hands on different things, try securing internships, and connections. Make a lot of connections. And these are some pointers that I've learned over time, and really took a lot of time for me to actually learn all these points. And actually, speaking about, as Samanika ma'am told, that coming from a non-NLU background, so although it might seem like a very small thing, it actually has it is very relevant. It is as real as it can get when you are out there in the market trying to find a job or something for yourself. But what I've understood is, if it is possible for me, it is just possible for every other person out there. Like, it's not impossible, it's not something difficult. It just takes time for you to understand how this works. But eventually all of us can get there. If I can get there, so can everyone. So that's what I have from my end.
So sweet, so honest, and so humble that you said if I can get it, anybody can get it. But one thing I really liked about your confidence part was, you, instead of saying I chose IP, you said IP wanted me. That part was very nice, because that is kind of saying like in Shah Rukh Khan's movie, because you were talking about Hindi. So there's this dialogue, "Itni shiddat se chaho ki kainat mila de," and that is something how it reflected from your end, that you knew it so clearly that I want IP, and more than that, probably IP also wants me, and therefore I know that it is possible. Like, I'll make it happen anyhow. So, Aishwarya, you studied from VIT. Now, not many people, especially in North India, are aware of about VIT offering law. VIT is very popular for engineering courses, but for law, it is not very popular. So, what inspired you to study there? How was your 5 years there? How did you plan your internships? Coming from a second generation law background, how did it contribute in your decisions? And thereafter, you currently did your LLM from Jindal, I suppose, right? So, what influenced you to pursue masters from Jindal, and how has again it shaped your personality?
Okay, so firstly about VIT, so there are a number of options in Chennai. So apart from government colleges, there are a lot of private universities that do offer law in Chennai. So someone who came from a science background in her higher studies, I did my maths, physics, and chemistry in my 11th and 12th. That was another different story, because my mom was a maths teacher and it was on me to do it. So after doing my maths, physics, chemistry, I was really, I knew I wanted to do law, but I was not sure how far I wanted to do it, because I was this young kid who would see fashion designing and then feel like, oh, I should be a fashion designer. So when I finally figured out law is something that I wanted to pursue, uh, first I had went for a fair. It was a very coincidental happening, where my father took me to this educational fair, where they put up stalls and everything, where you meet people from different colleges. And I met one of my professor from VIT in the fair. So when having a casual talk about my future, she randomly suggested that why don't you come and have a look at the campus. So I was way too excited that it was the first ever college that invited a 12th standard student to come and have a look at their campus. It was very fascinating for me. And the moment I entered VIT, the very next day I got ready at 8 a.m. in the morning, pushing my dad to take me to VIT just because to see how college campuses would look like, just to see how the canteen would look like, how a college classroom will look like. So I got ready and I just went to look at VIT. And the moment I saw the campus, the Chennai campus is really beautiful in Chennai. So the moment I saw the campus, actually the classes were going on for my seniors at that point. So they were all in their classrooms, and it really felt like this is where I belong. And during the break, I even had the word with the seniors to ask about the university and about law. And I had the opportunity to interact with different professors at that point, who were all really so sweet. And for someone who came straight out of school, so we were always being told what to do, what not to do in a school environment. So when professors are very cool, it was like, oh my God, is this the new, this is so new to me. So when I went there, I was so fascinated by thinking that, oh my God, so this is where I want to be. It offered an open environment for you to think loud, for you to speak up on your opinions. And 5 years throughout my studies at VIT, the way I was able to express whatever I have thought about, and the professors have been really, really supportive. And for someone like me who's very expressive, VIT has just made me be even more expressive. Is that what I can tell? Like, never they will shun you for your opinions, or never they're gonna stop you from imagining. So whenever you had any doubt, they can be your professor. They are not teaching you a subject. It just doesn't matter. You just have to approach them, and they're all really friendly. And the kind of peers I had in VIT, it was one of the most significant part of my law school days, is what I would say. So even now, when I read a topic, I have the urge to explain it to other people. And my friends from VIT are like the people who would sit through hours to just listen for me to explain things to them, even though they knew it, because they know that only when I explain stuff, I can write my exams well. So every morning during my exams, I still clearly remember that I have a bunch of friends sitting around me and me teaching them every question and answer, so that's how I can write my exams. So they'll be very patient, waiting for me to explain things to them. And I used to see how from 8 o'clock to 9 to 9:30, the crowd just gets bigger and bigger, and each of us pick up a question and start explaining that topic. And I thought law, that is how I learned law. And that's one of the most fascinating experiences I've had at VIT. So I would say that never have I ever thought about or regretted not being a part of any other university, because VIT had everything that it can offer. Because I was the second batch actually of VIT. There was only one batch who had passed out of the law school before me. So it was really fascinating. And every student had a personal connect with the professor, because they used to treat us like their own kids. So anytime you have any issues, you can just go to them. They'll be very more than happy to help you with it. And 5 years of law experience has been just amazing with VIT. And till now, if somebody asks me how is VIT, I would be like, just close your eyes and join VIT. That's something I would tell anybody who has any inhibitions with VIT. And post that, when I was into litigation, during my internships as well, I've come across a lot of IP related cases before the Madras High Court. And one of the most fascinating cases that I've seen through is about a trademark related case involving search engine. So how does it affect the market, or how does it affect the company? So that's when I knew, oh, companies focus so much on their IP. Companies spend so much money on their IP. That's when I knew it. And even during my litigation, if there was some IP case going on after my case, I would just wait there in the court hall to listen to what they're talking about. The urge to practice IP was constantly there on me. And Jindal, so when I applied to to Jindal, I was very sure that I wanted to do only IP. And why Jindal is because it had a course where it integrated IP and tech law as well. So someone who was into IP, I also wanted to look into different aspects of current tech law that includes crypto or NFTs. And I saw that we had electives like artificial intelligence and ethics and GDPR. Some of the fascinating subjects were there on their syllabus. So I immediately jumped in to study LLM from Jindal. And also I was able to secure a scholarship for my LLM at Jindal, which was more than enough for me to convince my parents into encouraging me to study. They were always being supported. And that comes the fact that I'm a second generation lawyer. So I know how it is difficult to convince your parents to tell that it's going to take time for us to grow in this field. And just like every other field, it's natural for them to expect us to start earning or start finding your place in the field the moment you graduate. So for someone who has a father who is a practitioner of law, the only convenient thing was he knew how hard it is. He knew how hard it would be for someone to get into the field and make their own mark. So time was never a problem for me. I used to work late hours. I used to sit and prepare for my papers, and then even during litigation I used to work for hours and hours, but they were very sweet and supportive to understand that this is my career and this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life maybe. So they were really supportive in it. And regarding getting internships, so I used just like every other kid, I used to sit and apply to n number of firms. Like literally I can tell you the number of firms I've applied to has definitely been more than 50. Or like every semester I used to apply to the same firms rigorously again and again and try to follow back. And some of my internships have been really great. And that's also because I've never given up. So I'm like, I'm just going to apply and get better every semester until the point I figure out that you're going to take me as an intern. So when I apply in second year, I would get a mail saying, no, you need to apply when you're in the final year. So I would again reapply in the third year and the fourth year. And every time I was just very conscious that my CV doesn't look like the same the time before by the time I last applied. So I need to add something to my CV new every time is what I've understood. So for my internships were planned in a way where I chose areas of practice that I have currently completed in that semester. So for one semester, if I've currently finished constitution law and family law, I would immediately go and find a litigation internship so that I've just come out of that subject. And it would I can really show up that in my internship instead of finding a IP internship in a second year or a third year when you have not done an IP paper. I would really suggest for you to actually find internship that in areas you're confident of. Like I still remember I did my internship with a tax firm, one of the leading tax firms, just after finishing my tax paper. So it was really encouraging. And but the one point I would also like to agree is no matter what paper you finished, it's going to be really tough for you when you get into the practicality of the subject. So every time they used to ask me, okay, refer to this section, and 1 second I go blank and they'll be like, you just read this paper, you just gave exam for this paper, how is it possible for you to not remember that section? Then I used to be like, okay, I'm glad I just at least finished it just now. Imagine I had done it in my second year or third year, I wouldn't even remember the sections. So to plan internships, one of something that I would suggest is that do internships in areas where you've finished that studying that subject at least. Otherwise it'll be really difficult for you. You'll learn as you are actually working on it. Otherwise, when you've learned it beforehand, at least you have a strong foundation. While interning, it will really help you. So my internships were that way. So when I finished a corporate paper, I would go and apply for a corporate internship. So my field of internships have been litigation. So first 2 years of my BA LLB, first year I did a internship with an NGO. Second year I did 2 internships with litigation offices in Chennai. Then third year I did a internship with another litigation firm. Fourth and fifth years were actually firms where I did non-litigation internships that included corporate law. And last year of my LLB, I was very persuaded to intern with a firm that had a multi-dimensional practice because I get my hands on different areas of law. Post which, during my LLM also, I had interned with an IP firm in Delhi. And later I was also working with IP professional in Delhi, and that is thanks to Samanika ma'am, who had actually, she really pushed me real hard into doing that internship, which was the best experience I've ever had. And thanks to you for that, firstly.
I'm glad that you said this. Shiva would be very happy. He always wanted to mentor students. So he was a part of he teaches actually drafting in the Holistic Growth Camp. And he had just gone independent. He's a media, sports, and IP lawyer. So he had called me and said, Samanak, I really want to invest time in training students, but I'm looking for a long-term intern. And coincidentally, you had just had your one-on-one call with me after the interview Growth Camp, where you said, I want a career in IP, but I don't know where to start from. So I was like, Rab ne mila di jodi. Let's connect these two. And I'm glad you went to him. You were also open to learning, because many a times it happens that a senior is ready and willing to invest time in training, but the student is not. Like, or even if at the beginning the student is, with time they lose interest. So that is something you didn't do. Like, you actually helped me save my name. That okay, for the first time, if I'm referring somebody, the student also turned out to be amazing. So after you got your job offer, he again called me and said, "Do you have more interns? Like, I really want to like invest more time." And of course, as professionals, we do also get help from the students for our work, but the learning. From the professional to the student actually plays a very important role. On this point, Aishwarya, I want you to also talk about one very relevant issue which is viral on LinkedIn these days, the impact of unpaid internship. Because this would definitely have been an unpaid internship since he had just started his practice. So would you let this internship go if you would have been getting a paid internship elsewhere, but not the equal amount of learning you got here?
So throughout my internships, I've had both paid internships and unpaid internships. I've done both. One thing that I would suggest is that paid internships seem very fancy. Like, yes, they look really fancy. And when you're a second year law student and you're getting paid for some internship that you're doing, you will feel like you're on top of the world. You feel like you're already practicing. You are already standing out with standing apart from so many other people in your class who are interning for less money, or who are interning for who are working in a place where there is no pay for their internship. But in the longer run, I would just say that the pay that you get in the internship will become irrelevant, and the learning that you have had in the internship is what becomes more relevant. By this means, I'm not endorsing unpaid internships, or I'm not saying that that should be the modus operandi of how internships should be working. But I wouldn't have let go of this opportunity if I had a paid opportunity in my hand at that point, because when I knew I wanted to do IP, and I had spoken to Shiva sir at that particular point. We had a long first call over a telephonic conversation that we had. And just like you said, we were two minds. He was willing to teach, I was willing to learn. And that was something that would have impressed anybody, not just me. And pay wouldn't have impressed me that much, as much as somebody who was willing to teach would impress me or want to take up that opportunity. So pay, if you're able to learn and you're still getting paid for it, well and good. But if you are in a paid internship for just for the sake of it, and it's not your area of interest, or you don't get to learn on an everyday basis, I would suggest let go of that opportunity and just find an opportunity where you can learn actually. Anyway, this might seem very dreamy to say, but one thing I've realized is no matter what, at the end of the day, you're going to earn some or the other time. But learning is a process. It's a continuous process. And the more you learn, the better. So I wouldn't suggest letting go of an opportunity just because it's the paid internship or an unpaid. If the place where you're looking to intern has really good learning to offer, I would really recommend for somebody to take it.
Yeah.
And regarding the whole unpaid internship thing, I think it's really unfair for law students, because seeing engineering students getting paid, like sometimes they go, like I have cousins and my brother who is also an engineer. So my mom used to taunt me with this saying that, what is this internship that you always end up, you're not being paid for this, you sit in the office like what, 7, 8, 9 p.m. and then you're just going on and on about it, but they're not paying you anything. They're not even paying you for to travel. But then probably that's how this has been working for so long. It'd be really great if places start to pay interns at least some amount for us to look at the end of the internship to get that tiny check would be really fascinating. But I think this is something that should also change. But learning is what has prioritized, something I would prioritize instead of getting a stipend.
Yeah, but having said that, I don't think either of us would deny the fact that we were privileged enough that we could afford to pay for our travel and everything else. But we do accept and recognize the fact that maybe not everybody is privileged enough, or their circumstances might not support. In those circumstances, the best suggestion would be to look for a remote opportunity, because in your case, Shiva had said that I wouldn't ask the student to come to Delhi for internship, so they wouldn't have to travel or pay for rent if they are staying somewhere. They can work from home. So there are a lot of solutions, because on LinkedIn, when I see these debates happening, of course, there's no like black or white. It's most of the time gray, and there are many young, fresh graduates, or when I say fresh graduates, I'm talking about professionals who have around like less than 10 years of experience, who are starting independent practice, and they do want to train more people in their journey, but they are not in a capacity to actually establish themselves, to have an office, to set up an entire team. And that's why they do want to involve more number of juniors whom they can train over a period of time, and then maybe in the long run offer PPO, or if they cannot hire, then definitely they do have contacts at other places like bigger firms and all, and they would want to refer you there, saying that, okay, I've trained this person for past 6 months, why don't you try this person for a job opportunity? So on LinkedIn, when I see a lot of students saying that if you don't pay us, we'll not come to your organization for internship, that probably can be a very harmful thing for yourself in the long run. Because as lawyers, as future lawyers also, one thing you should keep in mind is that you should always try to negotiate and not try to be very rigid, like either my way or highway kind of a thing. There's always scope. You can, like, I have had students who come to me and say that, Samanaka, if we intern at YLCC, will we get paid? So my first answer is no. And it's not like I don't want to pay or I haven't paid. I just try to check how they react to that. So a lot of people leave. That means that they are here clearly for a paycheck. A lot of people say, okay, fine, we want to work with a brand, we get good vibes, and that's why we want to come here. They do come and enter. But there are other smart ones, the negotiators, the real lawyers, who come to me and say that, okay, fine, if we intern right now, you are saying that there's no probability of getting paid, but if we perform exceptionally well, would you be interested to compensate for that, or would you be interested to acknowledge that, not compensate, acknowledge that? And those are the best ones I keep in mind, because they are like the star candidates that I know that definitely that this person is going to outperform. So then I say that, okay, fine, like if after these many weeks, like let's say 2 weeks, I'll evaluate you, and if I really like your work, I'll extend your internship for, let's say, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 3 months. And then then after this duration, I'll start paying you. So that keeps both of us motivated. I know that I can expect better work from the student than others, because he has clear goals. And on the other hand, the person also knows that if they perform really well, so it's not always that if the recruiter is saying no at the beginning, that there's no possibility of getting paid. They may not actually end up paying at the end. They might be open to acknowledging your hard work, provided you have those kind of lawyers conversations with them. So that's a tip for you all. Okay. Aishwarya, one last thing. So the fact that okay, before I go to that, I have to tell you that my cheeks are hurting because it was such an interesting conversation so far. I was just smiling, smiling, smiling. So my cheeks have already started hurting. Now you knew things, you were planning things, you were very open to learning, you were open to getting yourself like that lawyer tag, that whatever I'm doing, I'm getting interested in this. I'm studying ADR, I want to become ADR lawyer. I'm studying IPR, I want to become an IPR lawyer. Now, when you had so much clarity, even when you were doing masters from Jindal, what inspired you to come to YLCC for your interview prep, and how were we able to help you?
Okay, so I've actually been following YLCC even like I think since the time I was litigating, like right after my LLB, I've been following YLCC, and I've had a tab of how your work shows. I know how the results of your work have been on LinkedIn. I've been having a tab about how it is. So, I was never really in a point where I had to give an interview at that moment. So I knew that this existed, but I didn't know how to make use of it, or I really didn't know like how it could be of use to me. So after a point when I was, this was during my semester break in LLM. So I was halfway through my LLM, but I was really confused because I know I want a career in IP. I know that's something I want to pursue, but I really didn't know where I was going with it halfway through it. And it was also because at that point, I think there was so much else going on in for me personally. And I was really all over the place is what I would say. So at that point, I didn't know how to go through with my career further. So when I saw my LCC, I think I had messaged you on LinkedIn. So I had messaged you asking like, oh, what is this camp? Can you give me more information on this? And can you give me more information on what would actually happen in this? And I still remember you had sent me a pamphlet having the entire process. And even while I was through the camp, I was really not having an interview in my hand. I was really not having a job opportunity at that point. The only thing was I was hoping someday I would give an interview. Someday all of this might come in use to me. But I still remember you kept saying that you might give your interview now, you might give it later. It might be 1 year or 2 years, but this is what you need to do on the day of the interview. This is what you need to do one day before your interview. And the first, when I heard that I had to give an interview, the first ever person that would have come to my mind was you. And I still I was like, oh, Samanika ma'am is the person that I need to go to right now, because I was so impressed with the growth camp. And I still clearly remembered a lot of stuff that we had talked during the growth camp as well. So when I had the interview, it was a very short period of time that I had for my interview, and I didn't have like a lot of days to also prepare for it. But if I knew one person who was confident on me, it would have to be you. I know. This sounds so funny, but at that point, if in this entire world, if I need to find one person who had that confidence, who would think that I'm going to secure this job. I was like, okay, Samanika ma'am is the only person I know I can ping right now. And even for that, I was like, okay, it's 10 o'clock. Should I message her? But then I was like, ma'am had already told me, like, people have done this to her. They have messaged her during 10 p.m. in the night. So I'm like, why not not do it? And then the first thing I did was, ma'am, I have an interview to prepare. And although whatever you have told me before that, I've done I've taken it all very seriously. Like right from working with Shiva sir, or trying to publish papers in the relevant field of law, or to keep a note of how the contracts are drafted in IP, or something very specific to media laws, which was what I was so much into during my LLM days. So I had worked on it. I had taken it very seriously, and I had worked on all of that. And I also got to do it practically, as I was interning with sir at that point. So when the interview came up, I was like, so this is the last thing on the checklist to do. Now go to ma'am and tell that I've done all of this, but what else am I supposed to do for the interview? Because for someone like me, I know there could be a lot more people who are like me, who are good at studies, who know how to write an exam, who know how to score well, how to score good in their exams, but really don't know how an interview would take place. Or for some, because no matter what, I think the more you don't know seniors who have sat in placements, you don't know, you have no guidance, you don't have references to people who have gone through the entire arrangement of placements from their university. So even I didn't have a first-hand experience of how placements used to happen. And it was first time for me when Jindal had started its placements. And I still remember I had the Bear Act in place. I opened all the drafts that I had drafted before. And if I had not spoken to you on that day, I would have sat and read every section of Copyright Act the previous night, not knowing what to do. And I still remember you just told me that they're not going to take you for your marks or anything. They're just going to see you as a person. They're going to know who Aishwarya is. And that's why you will be recruited in case if it's going to happen. So that's what made me think, like, what do I have to offer the firm, like to start thinking about me. And I still remember sitting and filling the questionnaire, sending it to you to and fro again and again, and trying to understand that what a firm would look for me. And coming to the question of why YLCC is because I know that no matter if I secure the job or not, I wouldn't feel disappointed in myself after my interview when I had come to you. Like after speaking to you, like I know at least I've put my best efforts in place. No matter if I had gone rejected or if I had not secured this opportunity, I would have been pretty sure that at least I did what I can from the best of my abilities. And I had taken the words very seriously and worked on it. And no matter what, maybe it was just not for me. Maybe I had a lot more to prepare, is what I would have thought about myself. Because for someone who was very confident during her undergraduate days and during her college, the moment I stepped out of college, I didn't know. I was so insecure at that point. I didn't know, because maybe I was missing my peers, maybe I didn't have the time that I had with my friends in college. I was still not in a learning environment. As long as in a learning environment, you go to college, attend classes every day, you're very confident, you're very secure, you have your professors to tell you that it will be fine, you have your friends who are having your back at that point. So the moment your college gets over, everyone's tends to go in their own way. So that was exactly in a situation I was there. And coming to YLCC was the support that I needed at that point of time, like the moral support, the professional support. And I still remember even on the morning of my interview, we had a call. He was suggesting me that, yeah, it's good. And more than the interviewer, I was very concerned about what Samanika ma'am would have to say about this introduction. Would ma'am be okay? Would I end up very disappointing? Or I'm like, okay, now more than the interview, I wanted to be very impressive because I know I've worked hard for this. So YLCC is the place I would have, just because of YLCC, I would have felt good about myself giving the interview, no matter if I had not, even if I'm not secured the opportunity.
So sweet, so kind of you, Ashwara. But like when you were sharing this entire story of yours, I was going into the flashback, remembering how active you were in the class when in the interview growth camp, the three classes, the HR round, the technical round, and the interaction. You always had some or the other doubts, and like every time I would know that Ashwara would definitely have one or the other doubt. So at times when you would get paused, I would be like, Aishwarya, do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to ask? So I would know Aishwarya would have one or the other questions during the session, but I was honestly very surprised when we had that one-on-one sessions after the growth camp, and suddenly you came to me and said you started panicking. You were like, "I'm so vulnerable right now. I feel that I don't know anything. I haven't done much." So this version of Aishwarya, which people will be seeing on this video, actually wasn't the real version which I saw when I had a one-on-one call with you. And I was like, Aishwarya, you had been doing so well in VIT. You had such a great academic record. You had a very good CV also. And then suddenly, now that you're studying at Jindal also, a good brand on your CV. So why panicking so much? And you actually went into an extreme self-doubt phase.
Yeah.
So I one thing I felt is that the fact that you took the chance to enroll in the program at least 6 months in advance,
Yeah.
probably that would have helped you in going into that self introspection phase where at the beginning you went into self doubt, and over time then you understood your strengths, then you understood how you can portray yourself better, then you understood the gray areas in your CV where you could work upon the internships you did and the kind of impact it made, and like overall reaching to the final stage. So while
Yeah.
you were talking about you texting me at 10 in the night and like us scheduling that call, I it just took me to the flashback that the first conversation I had with you and I asked you, Shwara, tell me something about yourself. To be very honest, I'm saying this on record, but I was so disappointed. I was shocked. Like I was shocked to the core that what is this girl doing? Like I had shared this in depth during the class that no, this is not how you should say it, and you should say it this way, that way. Where is the holistic Ashwara? She's just focusing on IP. So that part, and then I asked you that Ashwara, take this questionnaire again from me, take these questions and give me the answers in written format. So I do remember you had just 2 days, and still the morning of your interview, I think you had your interview around 3 or 4 in the evening that day.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in
5 o'clock, yeah. So early morning, the first thing you did was send me the answers, and then we worked upon it. Then I said, okay, now you have a green signal from my end. Now I'm sure that like you'll not ruin it for yourself. So that's great. What Aishwarya was talking about YLCC's interview growth camp is, for those of you who don't know, it's a 3 days camp. It's a virtual thing where either in a live mode or in a recorded format, we share with you the information about how to prepare for the HR round of the interview, how to prepare for the technical round of the interview. And in the third session, you get to interact with our YLCC alumni who've cracked big opportunities. At times, you also get to interact with law firm partners. Both share their own understanding and perspectives as to how, according to them, should you prepare for your interviews. So, Aishwarya, I think you were in the Feb batch where I think Yamini and Swati had interacted with you.
Yeah.
Both from ILS, both secured tier one campus placements. So they both had shared their own journeys and experiences with their batch. And along with that, then you get a one-on-one seating with the YLCC mentors. Before allowing you to come for live sessions, we share a detailed personalized questionnaire for you. The questionnaire is different for each student depending on their journey and what their long-term goals are. So, how did the questionnaire help you, Aishwarya? Because from being very confident in the group classes to suddenly getting into that brief phase of self doubt, I think probably the questionnaire also forced you to introspect in on areas where you probably were not thinking much about.
Yeah. So actually, with the questionnaire, I would say that the questionnaire is something that had me try to understand like what was going wrong with me, but at the same time, that was the same questionnaire that helped me understand what is the right things I was doing. So the questionnaire, which had a lot of questions, starts from giving a brief about ourselves to understanding why I did law, and as you answer the question, you try to introspect yourself, and while introspecting me, I just understood that, yes, I am a good student. I am a good learner, but how can this be converted into a good employee? That's where my question of self-doubt arose, and I really didn't have an answer to that question. Like, yes, I can study well, I can learn well, but how do I convert into some employable skills? That's something I really didn't know, because these are very different things. Like, even though I had done litigation has separate set of skill sets that are required, and when you start working for a place, an organization or a firm, it requires a lot of other skills to be put in place. So for someone who didn't have an understanding of what are those skill sets, or to understand if I even had them in me to possess those skills that would actually make me help me work in a firm culture. So that's when my self-doubt started kicking in. Like, was I enough? Was what I did so far has been enough? And I need somebody, like at least someone I would trust on. Like, I know for a fact that if Samanika ma'am had told me I'm wrong in something, I would definitely take my time to investigate what's wrong with that. And if ma'am is telling me that I am good at certain things, I would really take that word and understand that, oh yeah, maybe if ma'am says it, there is some reasoning behind it. And I still remember that ma'am, you had given me this feedback of Aishwarya, you need to work on your personal questions more. Like, I had to answer the questions that are personally related to me in a much better way, because I'm good at communicating, but I don't know when I put them to words or type them in a questionnaire. I really don't know. So I think I become this very self-conscious person when I start doubting my own words again and again. Like, should I put this word, should I say this word, should I just not add it to the point? Or for example, let's just understand that I was still doubtful if I should say that I had a rank in my undergraduate. Should I say it, should I not say it? Is my CGPA the first thing that I'm supposed to talk to about? Is the first thing that I'm supposed to open up with? Or is my interest in IP is the first thing that I'm supposed to say? So there are a lot of confusions around me at that point. Like, and I also, as somebody who's doing their LLM, who is very sure of what I want to do after that, I was really confused, because there's a bunch of other people who are working towards the same career that you are seeing yourself in. So when you're put in such a situation, you start doubting whether you start seeing yourself as a person who is like, whether are you ready for this, are you into this, or do you have the skill set in you to pursue this career? So after that self-doubt, a brief phase of self-doubt that I was in, I really went back, and ma'am had even advised me to go back and watch the Growthcamp videos that we had done 6 months back. So I still remember I had sat through it, started making notes again, started remembering every word that you had said during the Growthcamp. And like, when we attended the Growthcamp, it was, although it looked like a very it looked very the pointers that mentioned and everything was very clear to me. I didn't know how I will be putting it into practicality when the time comes. And like, taking it 6 months ahead is something I would have if I had known, I would have taken it even more earlier, is what I would have preferred to do it. Like, around my UG days, like when I was in my third year, or any point at my UG, is something I would have wanted to take up this camp, because the more earlier you take it, the more time you have to introspect yourself. Like, 6 months was a really good time in my case, but good things can happen as early as it can, is what I would say. So that 6 month helped me question myself, then trying to become confident, trying to answer my own doubts. So I had this entire curve of putting myself up down the hard time, and then trying to get up from it. And I think that's what reflects maybe when I talk now. Like, definitely for people who see this wouldn't believe that somebody who can speak so well, somebody who can come across as the spontaneous person, would put themselves to through such a self-doubt. But it did happen to me, and I'm glad I'm over that phase, and I'm glad I came to YLCC, and it had helped me so much in coming across that phase.
So sweet, so sweet. So you very beautifully captured it. And the fact that in your case, why things worked out within 6 months is also because there was a lot you had already done. So your CV was already there in place and to a great extent in a structured manner. And if I'm not wrong, I would have emphasized a lot also on the fact that you need to remove a lot of things from your CV. Because in the first part where you mentioned that every single time you were trying something new, you were doing litigation internships, corporate internships, ADR, IPR, and a lot of other things. But on the day of recruitment, it's like the lesser you talk about in one direction rather than talking more about all the directions is always better, because things should be streamlined. And the 70-30 ratio, we focus on that. 70% you focus if you're going for IPR, 70% focus on IPR in your CV, and 30% keep everything else. Because otherwise, if it's just 30% IPR and like maybe 20% ADR, 30% corporate litigation, everything, so it also confuses the recruiter as to what exactly do you want. And when it comes to rejection process rather than selection process, when they have too many options and like the demand is more, the supply is less, they do have to filter those people who have been just inclined towards one direction. And I believe that that would have been the most important factor for your placement, that your CV had that consistency, showed that clarity of thought that yes, this girl just wants IPR and like is not going for IP as an option. That is her main goal. So that would have definitely helped. That was such an interesting conversation, Aishwarya. Thank you so much for sharing so many important, valuable things. And most importantly, the energy you carry. Like I said, my cheeks are hurting because I was constantly smiling. You had a lot to share. Most of the people who would be watching wouldn't know how hardworking you are, how much you put yourself through the grilling process, and then you come across as if the very calm, composed person, as if had everything sorted, had everything in place on a platter offered. But it's not actually true. If you would, all those who would know Aishwarya, I think you would know her more than I do. But in a short span, which I have understood is she goes to any extent to work extremely hard to contribute first. She would first prove why she is the right fit for you, and then she would ask you for that opportunity. So I'm really glad you allowed YLCC to contribute to your success story. All the very best for your future. And yeah, a lot of young students from Chennai, you can take inspiration from Aishwarya. And like she said, if it could happen for her, it can definitely happen for you as well. So all the very best. I really hope you all also secure great opportunities, whatever you are targeting for. And all the very best.
Thank you. Thank you.